All right, Algebra 1, we're going to continue simplifying expressions today, but we're going to add in the distributive property. So I want you to take a couple of minutes and by yourself, you're going to answer these questions at the top, A through D. Just write something down, whatever you think, and then you can pause the video, and then I'll come back and talk about these 4 questions. All right, so hopefully you've had a few minutes to answer these 4 questions. Let's talk about them. So A says, write in words the meaning of 3 parentheses 12. So in math, if there is a parenthesis in an expression or in an equation, it's understood to be multiplication. So this really means 3 times 12. So hopefully you wrote something similar to 3 times 12. Or you could think of it as 3 groups of 12. And then we could add up those 3 groups of 12 or multiply 3 times 12 to get the answer. Okay, B says apply your thinking from part A to write the meaning of 3 parentheses x minus 4. So the same way, if I have 3 parentheses, something inside parentheses, this means 3 times whatever is in parentheses. So in this case, we would be multiplying 3 times x minus 4. Or you could even think 3 groups of x minus 4. So if I wrote x minus 4 down 3 times, then I could combine my like terms like we did in the previous lesson. So part C says to use your algebra tiles to sketch 3 parentheses x minus 4. So if I think of it as 3 groups of x minus 4, then I'm going to draw out x minus 4 with my algebra tiles, and then I'm going to do that 3 times. So I'm going to pause and draw out my algebra tiles, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so I didn't do a great job, but we get the point here. I have drawn out x minus 4. So I have one x rectangle and then negative 4 squares. And so since there were 3 times that, I drew 3 groups of that x minus 4. So then we could use those algebra tiles to simplify that expression. So it says in part D, explain a method for finding the simplified expression of 3 parentheses x minus 4 without algebra tiles. So if I know that I'm multiplying 3 times x minus 4, I want to make sure that I'm multiplying 3 times both of those terms on the inside, not just one of them. So I would have to do 3 times x, and then I would need to do 3 times negative 4. And I should be able to get my answer that way if I'm multiplying 3 times both of those terms inside of the parenthesis. So this process that we're learning today is called the distributive property. So the distributive property allows us to multiply each term inside the parenthesis by the number outside the parentheses. So algebraically, it says parenthesis A or A parenthesis A plus B plus C, So we would want to multiply the A times both the terms on the inside. So that would be A times B plus A times C. We would want to multiply A times both terms, and then we would add them together. Now, these are variables, so we can't add AB and AC together because they're not like terms. So it would just stay just like that. So similarly, if I have A times B minus C, this would be A times B minus A times C, and we would leave it. So one thing we always want to pay attention to is our signs. It says be careful with your signs when multiplying positives and negatives. So as we're working through the distributive property, make sure you're paying attention when we're multiplying two things together, what their signs should be. So one way that we show the distributive property is by drawing arrows to represent the things that we're going to multiply together in the parenthesis. So here's what that looks like for me. So in example 1, I have 4 parentheses x plus 2. So I know I need to multiply 4 times both of those terms inside. So I do 4 times x and draw a little rainbow showing I'm going to multiply 4 times x. So 4 times x is just 4x. Then I need to multiply 4 times positive 2. So 4 times positive 2 is 8. So again, I'm not going to see very much work on some of these problems, especially if we can't combine like terms after we distribute. In this case, I have 4x and 8, which are unlike terms, so it would stay 4x plus 8. All right, same thing on number 2. Notice in front of the parenthesis, I have a negative sign, but there's not a number there. That number is an understood 1. So if you need to put a 1 in front to help you out, make sure you do that. So we need to multiply negative 1 times both terms inside the parenthesis. So we're going to do negative 1 times 5x. So negative 1 times 5 is going to be negative 5x. And then negative 1 times negative 7, a negative times a negative, remember, is a positive. So this would simplify to negative 5x plus 7. All right, number 3, we've got a decimal. That's okay. We're not going to freak out about decimals. Either use your brain or use your calculator. So we're going to multiply negative 8 times 0.25x, and then we're going to multiply negative 8 times 2. So negative 8 times 0.25x is going to be negative 2x. And then negative 8 times positive 2 is negative 16. All right, number 4, we have 1/2 in front of the parenthesis that we need to distribute to both terms. So we're going to do 1/2 times x, which will be 1/2 x. And then we're going to do 1/2 times negative 9. Remember, because we already have fractions in the problem, we're going to keep this as a fraction. So when I'm multiplying a fraction times a whole number, remember this is 9 over 1. And I'm just going to multiply the tops together and the bottoms together. So 1 times negative 9 is going to be negative 9 over 2 times 1 on the bottom will be 2. Now, if we could reduce that fraction, we would, but it's going to stay negative 9 over 2. All right, number 5, we have 14 minus 6 times 3x minus 1.5. So this problem's a little bit different. We've got some extra things going on. So notice at the very beginning of the problem, I have a 14, and then minus 6 is being multiplied times what's in parentheses. So we're going to bring the 14 straight down. We're not going to do anything with it. We're always going to distribute first. So I need to distribute negative 6 times 3x. So negative 6 times 3 is negative 18x. And then we need to multiply negative 6 times negative 1.5. So that's positive 9. So now, since we've distributed, we're going to combine like terms, just like we did the day before. So I'm going to start with my variables. So notice I have a negative 18x and no other x's. So this is going to stay negative 18x. Then I have two different constants. I have a 14 and a positive 9. So 14 plus 9 is going to be positive 23. So this expression simplifies to negative 18x plus 23. So I want you to take a second and look at those examples and figure out what's the difference between example 5 than the other 4. So all of the first 4 examples had a number in front of parentheses only, one number that was being multiplied times the set of parentheses. In example 5, we had an extra number out front that was technically being added to whatever negative 6 was times the parentheses. So we didn't want to do anything with that 14 to start with. We just bring it straight down in the problem and distribute first. A lot of people would be tempted to do 14 minus 6 and figure out what that is, and then distribute that number to the parentheses. But that's not the correct order of operations. In the order of operations, if you remember, it starts with parentheses. So we want to take sure there's nothing inside the parenthesis that I can simplify, but there's something on the outside that I need to multiply times that parenthesis. So I want to take care of that first, and then addition and subtraction should be the last 2 steps that we take. So now we're going to do a few more examples where we have to distribute, and then we will also combine like terms like we did the day before. So on number 6, I have 16x plus 5.6 times 2x minus 11. So again, if you have something extra in front of your parenthesis, we're going to bring that straight down. We're not going to do anything with 16x yet. We're just going to look at what's in front of the parenthesis and distribute those terms. So we need to do 5.6 times 2x. So that's going to be 11.2x. And then we're going to do 5.6 times negative 11. It's going to be negative 61.6. So because we had decimals in the original question, we're going to keep decimals throughout our problem. So now we need to combine like terms. So I have 16x's plus 11.2x's. So that's going to be 27.2x. And then my constant is the only one, so that's minus 61.6. So in your work, I should be able to see how you distributed, and then your last step should show me how you combine those like terms. All right, number 7. So notice we don't have anything extra in this one, so we can go ahead and distribute. So 13 times 1.4 is going to be 18.2. And then 13 times 2w is going to be positive 26w. So notice I don't have any like terms to combine. The only thing that I would do to change my answer instead of leaving it like this is just switch the order around. And I would write 26w first and then plus 18.2. Both of those are correct, but we just like to have them look the same and be in the same order. All right, number 8. We've got 3/4 multiplied times 16m minus 5 and then minus 3/2. So again, we're not going to freak out when we've got fractions. We can use our calculator. All right, so we need to multiply 3/4 times 16. So 3/4 times 16 is going to be 12m. Then we need to do 3/4 times negative 5. So notice this time, whenever you do a negative number, you're using the symbol that's down at the very bottom of your calculator right next to enter. If I was subtracting two terms, then I would use the minus that's above the plus. So you got to be very careful with your minus sign and your negative sign. So because this original problem is in fractions, I want this to be a fraction. So I'm going to hit math, enter, enter. So this is going to be minus 15/4. Okay, now this minus 3/2 at the end, it's not in the parentheses, so we're just going to bring it straight down. It doesn't change. Now what we want to do is combine our like terms. So I have 12 m's and no other m's. Now we're going to combine our constants. So let your calculator be your friend. We're going to do negative 15/4 minus, this time, 3/2. You could also type it in negative 15/4 plus a negative 3/2, and that would give you the same answer. That's just more buttons, so I usually don't do it that way. Whoops, I noticed that's the wrong symbol right there. Change that to division. There we go. Should get the same answer, and we want this as a fraction, so we're going to hit math, enter, enter. So minus 21/4. All right, number 9, we have 15.4 minus 5.2 times 3f plus 1.2. So we're going to bring our 15.4 straight down. We're going to distribute first. So I need to multiply negative 5.2 times 3. So that's negative 15.6f. Then I need to multiply negative 5.2 times 1.2. That's going to be negative 6.24. So now we're going to combine our like terms. We're going to start with our f's. So I have negative 15.6f. And then my constants. We're going to do 15.4 minus 6.24, which gives me positive 9.16. All right, number 10, very similar. I have an extra something at the beginning in front of the parentheses, so we're going to bring that 5/8x straight down. And we're going to distribute the negative 2 into the parentheses. So negative 2 times 7 is negative 14. Negative 2 times negative 1/4. So remember, a negative times a negative is going to be a positive. 2 times 1 is 2 over 4, which reduces to 1/2 x. Again, fractions, if they're not your friend, you're going to do negative 2 times negative 1/4 and then you can hit math, enter, enter to change it back to a fraction for you. Now we're going to combine our like terms. So we're going to start with our x's, 5/8 plus 1/2. So we're going to do 5/8 plus 1/2. And I'm going to do math, enter, enter. It's going to be 9/8x. And then we didn't have any other constants, so negative 14 is going to stay the same. Number 11 says Chandra simplified the following expression but made an error. Describe her mistake and then correctly simplify the expression. So we're going to take it step at a time and see if we can figure out where her mistake is. So it looks like her first step, she did bring the 26.7 straight down, so that was good. Now let's check our math on the rest of it. So she should have done negative 6.3 times 6, which is negative 37.8x, so that was correct. Then she should have done negative 6.3 times negative 10.1. So remember, a negative times a negative should be a positive 63.63. So that's where her mistake is. She wrote the wrong sign. Okay, so let's continue with our work and get the correct answer. So we're going to start with our x's, negative 37.8x, and then we're going to add our constants together. So 26.7 plus 63.63 is 90.33, should be the correct answer. So she did not pay attention to her signs. One little mistake will get you a very wrong answer, so be careful with your signs. Okay, number 12 says Glenn simplified the following expression but made an error, so let's find his mistake. So I see his mistake straight off. If you look from step 1 to step 2, somehow miraculously he went from an 18 to a 3. I think what he did is tried to do 18 minus the 15 that's in the parenthesis, and that's maybe how he got the 3. I'm not sure. But should have brought the 18 straight down and then distributed the 3/5. So 3/5 times 6x, so 3/5 times 6. And I'm going to hit math, enter, enter. So that's going to be positive 18/5x. And then 3/5 times a negative 15 is negative 9. So we distributed the 3/5 to both sets of parentheses. Now we combine like terms. The only x's I have are 18/5x. And then we have our constants, 18 minus 9, which is going to be plus 9. Okay, number 13 says Oscar is painting a wall with the following dimensions. Write a simplified expression for the area of the wall. So remember, area is the amount of space inside of a shape. So area of a rectangle is length times width. So we need to multiply the length and the width of this rectangle. Now remember, because I don't have two numbers for the length and the width, we're not going to get a one number answer. We're still going to have a expression as our answer, similar to the way we did yesterday with perimeter. But we need to multiply this 40.5 times both parts of the other side. So I'm going to start by doing 40.5 times 8.3. So that's going to give me 336.15 W. And then we're going to do 40.5 times 2, which gives me 81. So the area of this rectangle is 336.15 W plus 81. All right, last one. Georgia is fencing in a section of her yard for a chicken coop. The area will be shaped like a square. Write the expression that represents the amount of fencing she will need. So for a square technically is a rectangle, so it's still length times width. But in a square, the sides are the same. So most of the time, the area of a square is written side squared, or side times side, means the same thing. So basically, we need to multiply this side times itself. I just realized it did talk about area, but since it's talking about the fencing that she needs, that's actually the perimeter. So we don't need the area formula. We need perimeter, which is 4 sides, since all 4 sides are the same. So that was a little confusing. Make sure you're paying attention if you should be using the area formula or the perimeter formula. So this time we need to multiply 4 times the side of the square. So remember, I don't like these mixed numbers. We're going to change that to an improper fraction first. So I'm going to keep my 4. We're going to need to do 3 times 9. And then we're going to add the 2 on the top. So that's 29 over 3x minus 19. So most of the time we don't even see mixed numbers in our algebra worksheets, but occasionally they throw them in. So make sure you change those to an improper fraction. So we need to do 4 times 29 over 3. And I'm going to do math, enter, enter. So this is 116 over 3x. And then we're going to do 4 times negative 19, which is negative 76. So this would represent the amount of fencing that she would need, which is actually the perimeter of this square, not the area. All right, so now you're going to get the worksheet that you're going to work on now. So in this worksheet, we've got some cards on the left and right of the paper, and then down at the bottom, we're going to be matching our answers. So let me explain what we're looking for on this paper. What I'm not looking for is just for you to fill in the bottom of this paper. This part I could care less about. This just kind of helps you check to see if you're right or wrong. What I'm really looking for is the work. So within each card or on the outside or in the back, wherever you need to, this is where you're going to do your work and write your answer. So for example, on A, I've got this -1 that I'm going to bring straight down, and I'm going to need to distribute it to both of those terms inside the parenthesis. I'm going to simplify and get my answer, and I'm going to write it somewhere in the box or on the outside of the box. Once I do all of the cards on the left and I start working on the cards on the right, there's going to be a card on the right that's going to match up to that one. It's going to have the same answer. So then down here at the bottom, after you've shown all of your work, you would say card A and card blank have the same answer, and they both simplify to equal, and you would write your answer here. But mainly what I'm looking for is for your work, so make sure you show that either inside each box if you have room, out to the side, or on a separate sheet of paper. If you just turn in a paper that has nothing on the top, but it just has the bottom part filled in, that's not going to work for me. You're not going to get full credit for that. So make sure you show your work somewhere on the paper.